This isn't the BBC Light programme.
The Tony Hancock Appreciation Society presents, very nearly an armful, a Tony Hancock podcast.
Hello and welcome to Very Nearly an Armful, brought to you by the Tony Hancock Appreciation Society.
On the podcast, we'll be discussing Tony's famous series, Hancock's Half Hour.
We'll discuss the show, its production, and what we liked about it.
We'll rate and review the episodes and just generally get our geek on about vintage comedy.
We're your hosts. I'm Martin Gibbons.
I'm John Street.
And I'm Tim Elms.
We're spread across the southeast of the UK in a line from Colchester to Benfleet via Maidstone.
And our members are spread all over the world. We have members in Birchwood, Lordswood, Abbeywood and Pettswood.
Quite a forest.
Yeah, an awful lot of books. And in this podcast, we'll be discussing the restorations and extended edits of several episodes of Hancock's Half Hour when they came out on CD in recent years. We'll have special guest Ted Kendall, a music restorer and mastering engineer who worked for BBC Transcription services before going freelance and setting up his own mastering studio.
Ted was instrumental in the release of the first box sets of Hancock's Half Hour on CD, plus the 4 volumes of Hancock's Half Hour Collectibles.
Ted has also worked tirelessly on the release of the 14 editions of the Goon Show Compendia and the release of the Navy Lark box sets, amongst many others.
First of all, chaps, what's everyone been up to?
Well, I've been watching a couple of sitcoms, new and old. So I recently saw Can You Keep a Secret with Dawn French on the BBC iPlayer, and I found that very chuckle-worthy.
Can you keep a secret? Dad, it turns out I hadn't died. The money from your dad's life insurance finally came through. Please, this is fraud.
You have to give the money back. What sort of friend blackmails their own mates?
We're a crime family.
Oh, don't be silly.
It's,
Is
yes.
it? Yeah.
Her husband's hiding in the attic pretending he's dead just so that they can collect the life insurance, which very much reminds me of a line in Hancock Joins the Police.
3 years you had me going round collecting a widow's pension.
It seemed the natural thing to do. After all, I spent 6 months in the attic while you collected me life insurance.
And I've also been watching a little bit of Bless This House, the first series with Sid James and Diana Coupland, I think, plays his wife. And it's
Black and white series.
a bit more sedate. Yeah, it's the first series black and white. I think that must have been during the ITV technicians strike back in the 70s.
Oh, was it? Right. I thought it was just filmed in black and white. Right.
No, I would have thought it would have been colour by the time when it was
1970.
recorded.
But there was a period where a lot of TV shows that were in colour had a chunk that were in black and white. I think A Family at War was like that because it was due to the colour technician strike at ITV, which I think must have been in 1970 when this was broadcast.
That was quick. Have you had a shave?
I haven't had anything. Sometimes I think it'd be quicker to take a bus down to the barber's.
Don't exaggerate.
I'm not exaggerating. The only way I can make dead sure of getting into that bathroom in the morning is sleeping in the bath.
It's only natural, Sid. Any girl Sally's age tends to monopolise the bathroom.
It's not Sally that's in there. It's that blasted Mao Zedong.
It's interesting because I've been watching Barker in the Ronnie Barker collection set, which was released by Network DVD a few years back. And I'm partway through the 1969 series, which I think was made in black and white, which seems quite late for a black and white series to be made. But 1969 and the second series, 1970, all but one of the episodes on the disc are in colour. So that's when the sort of the changeover happened. Although it looks like one of them is probably only a tele-recording exists, so that's in black and white. But a great little series. And interesting to see Bill Oddie, Eric Idle and Graham Garden amongst many others in the writing credits. And some of it is really quite surreal and a bit Python-esque in places. So it's been really interesting. And Ronnie Barker, of course, he does an opening introduction, which very much reminded me of what he went on to do with the two Ronnies. Lots and lots of great word plays and that sort of thing.
I would like to talk to you tonight about the case for nudity on television. With me in the studio, also in the nude, will be Raquel Welch, Lulu, Malcolm Muggeridge, Miss World, and an audience of 800. Robin Day was supposed to have been with us, but he refused to appear without his bow tie.
So if anyone is able to find a copy of the Ronnie Barker collection, Hark Barker, and it's also got that's 2 series of that and a series of 6 dates with Barker. Well worth it picking up if you do find a copy. But sadly, as it was network, I'm sure out of print now.
I like watching these retro channels or seeing what's on the retro channels. We've got several of them now, haven't we? We've got Talking Pictures and Rewind and That's TV and things like that. And they often come up with things that are quite unusual. Sometimes I put them on just because I think, oh, yeah, I remember that. I mean, when you watch it, of course, it's rubbish. But if you've got this...
the memory cheats, doesn't it?
Yes. Well, you know, I mean, a lot of these from my younger days and stuff. And
before you upped your standards, Tim, eh?
But yes, well, one of them the other day I was watching was the Dustbin Men. I don't know if you remember that, you know, but it's in some respects it's lovely nostalgic stuff, but it's hardly classic comedy. But it's nice to be able to watch some of these things that we watched years ago. But one I was catching up with that I haven't seen for a little while that was on. I think it's on That's TV. I might be doing them any justice. Was Citizen Smith.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I really did like that back in the day. 1977, that started.
The very young Robert Lindsay, wasn't it, as the lead?
Well, yes, I think it was probably one of the first things he did. I mean, it was a starring role, so he probably did something before that. I haven't checked it out. But he played Wolfie Smith, this urban gorilla from Tooting. I mean, a brilliant situation to put a character in. And he was supported by Cheryl Hall as his girlfriend, who I didn't realise till recently he was actually married to at the time. And she was in Bless His House as well. And she's been in various things. But one of my favourite characters in it is Hilda Braid, who plays Cheryl's mum, who is essentially Wolfie's landlady. And she's one of these actresses who was in absolutely everything, but she is just superb. She always calls Wolfie Foxy, which is it's a bit like Trigger calling Dave
Rodney Dave.
Rodney.
Call him Rodney Dave, yeah, call him Dave Rodney.
Dave.
Call him Rodney Dave. Well, of course, it was the same writers. It was John Sullivan's first sitcom.
Yes.
The reason he got a job at the BBC was so he could tout the script around for people to see. But there's a few Hancock collections in it, apart from the fact that John Sullivan wrote it. Peter Vaughan played Wolfie's, well, Cheryl Hall's character's dad in the first 2 series, who we know and love from the Punch and Judy Man. And the producer was Dennis Main Wilson.
Oh, yes, because he did go into TV, didn't he, after
he
Hancock's
went,
Half
that's
Hour?
right, yes, yeah. And so of course there was Sullivan wrote it, and Sullivan we know was a Hancock fan, and we met John Sullivan's best friend and school age friend last year when we went to McConkey's where they now live. So there's quite a few connections like that. There was also a line I picked up because do you remember I did something in our magazine, The Missing Page, about the similarities between Hancock's Half Hour and Only Fools and Horses.
Yes.
And I think that Sullivan was hugely influenced by Galton Simpson and the Hancock scripts. And there was a line in it the other day where Wolfie says, "Don't call me smudger, it lacks respect." Do you think Che Guevara lets people go around calling him Nobby or something? And it reminded me of the line when he says, "Do you think Hancock says, do you think Wilfrid Hyde White allows his friends to call him smudger?"
Chalky.
Do you remember that episode?
Chalky.
Sorry, Chalky. Cool. What am I talking about?
Wilfrid Hyde White lets his bit players call him Chalky.
That's it.
That's
yes,
the
it was
line.
in the
Impersonator.
episode.
You put your foot in it again, Tone. Fancy forgetting which town you're in.
Look, Heather, stop calling me Tone. When I'm doing the straight drama, I'm Anthony. It's bad enough being called Tony. Let's have a little respect for the principal. It isn't right for subsidiary members of the cast to address the principal with diminutives. Wilfrid Hyde White doesn't allow his bit players to go around calling him Chalky.
The impersonator in the 6th series. That's it.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
It's a nice watch. In fact, Peter Vaughan left after the first 2 series, and another actor came in to play the dad. But one episode I was watching the other day also had a guest appearance by Wilfred Bramble in it. So another Galton Simpson connection there.
He's quite the character actor, that Wilfred Bramble. He would appear in all sorts of things.
Yeah, he's appeared in everything, yeah. He was very popular, of course, at doing old man parts. And when he first did Steptoe, he was just 49 years old. Incredible, isn't it?
It's a bit like Clive Dunn was always good at the old
But Clive Dunn was dressed up to look old, wasn't he? He had the old man makeup on. I mean, Wilfred Bramble was just being himself.
Yeah, well, that's true. And of course, he was famously appeared in Hard Day's Night, didn't he, Wilfred Bramble?
Who did, yeah.
Playing Paul McCartney's very clean old man granddad.
Well, that's right.
Yes,
because the joke in Steptoe and Son was that he was a dirty old man. And so in the Hard Day's Night, they kept saying what a clean man he is.
So then, I guess it's time for some tweets and emails. Have you had anything in your digital mail sack this week, young Timothy?
Well, funny you should say that. We haven't done a podcast for a while, so I've put a few things away. We had a Twitter X post recently from a guy called Howard Martin, and he was replying to something I sent out, and it just struck me as interesting because this thing has come up time and time again. He said that when he was at school in the early 60s, Hancock's half hour was the highlight of the week, and the first question the next day at school from his mates was, "Did you see Hancock last night?" And lots of people say this, people who were around at the time, either in the 50s or the 60s, that Hancock's half hour was like a main talking point and what we now call a water cooler moment when people come to work the next day.
Yeah.
Everyone was talking about it. I think one of our members, Bob Ray, spoke about that from back in the day. It's interesting how popular it was at the time. And I think he said, I don't think anything on TV gets that reaction today. And someone replied saying, "What about the traitors?" And I think that's probably the nearest thing to it. But yeah. And also, I mean, we often talk about the tweets, and I've even mentioned a couple of Blue Sky posts on here. We never talk about the Facebook page, do we? Because the Society has got a very active Facebook group called the Tony Hancock Appreciation Society group. There's obviously lots of interesting stuff comes up, and it's very enjoyable going through the posts. But one particular one I enjoyed back in December was Simon Charlton put a post on saying, at what point did they decide to dumb down Bill? Now, we all know that Bill's character changed from the fast-talking wise guy to this Sparrow Laurel type character. But I don't know about you, but I've never really put my finger on exactly when it happened. So I did a bit of digging, and according to my research going through various episodes, I've worked out that the first episode in which he was fully dumbed down was the male suffragettes in 5th series.
I was listening to that the other day.
And the previous episode to that was actually the new radio series in which Bill is actually quite bright. And in fact, he nearly gets offered Kerr's half hour, doesn't he? When the BBC talk about Hancock standing down. So, and there's, I think also it goes up and down a bit. He's not always as dumb in some episodes as he is in others.
Sometimes he's quite dumb in an episode, except for one period where he's quite sharp talking, and then he goes back to being stupid again.
Yes, it's whatever Ryan Allen wanted him to be in the script, isn't it? But but the male suffragettes, according to my reckoning, is the first real dumbed down Bill. But
so quite early in series 5, so quite late in the run overall, really.
It is. Yeah, I thought it might have been before that, but it wasn't. But if any listener wants to challenge that, by all means, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes, because by the time you get to a couple of episodes later, the unexploded bomb, and he's in fully dumbed down mode by then, isn't he?
And Hancock's school.
Where he's learning to read and write.
Yeah.
So actually, it wasn't that gradual then, was it? It was quite.
Well, my perception beforehand was that it was a gradual thing from earlier, but I don't think it was. I mean, when you look at the difference between the new radio series and Suffragettes, there's quite a marked difference in his performance in those 2 episodes.
Maybe the character had a concussion at the end of the new radio series, and he's never quite gets his marbles back thereafter.
Because actually, the
Yeah.
one before Male Suffragette, Scandal magazine, he's portrayed as quite dim, isn't he, when he's standing in court?
I have known Tony Hancock for
for
6 years now.
Well,
Tell the court how long you've known me.
I have known Tony Hancock for 6 years now, and during that time I have never known him to consort with members of the opposite.
He's reading it.
He's not. How can he be reading it?
You're holding a board up in front of him.
we covered the Scandal magazine, didn't we? But that's one of the episodes where he's not necessarily dim when he's saying that. He's reading off a card. That's what he's meant to be, isn't it? The reason that he's talking in that staccato voice is because Sid has primed him to read certain words out.
But then it's also like, it's introduced as like, I'm a desperate man. This shows you how desperate.
May I call my witness? I'm a desperate man.
You may.
Call Bill Kerr.
That shows you how desperate I am.
Hiya, Tub. Met any more birds lately?
Sit down, you.
As in like, Bill's too dumb to answer the questions without having the idiot board. Almost, you know?
Yeah.
Fascinating. So it's anyway, beginning of the 5th series, isn't it then?
Yes.
And it's a sudden change.
I think so. It's more sudden than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
I when I started listening to episodes to try and work it out, it did strike me that it wasn't the gradual change that I expected to hear.
And I happened to myself to be listening to one of the Hancock half-hour episodes that on some of the CDs has some slightly longer moments than in previous releases, which was the Fate, and we were talking about how people mentioned in Hancock's half hour, is Cliff Richard the only one still alive who gets a name drop in an episode, and Claire Bloom, who is still going at 94, who's an actress from the golden age of Hollywood or whatever, and I think was in a Doctor Who playing David Tennant, the Doctor's sort of mother or something in one episode. She's still going, and she's mentioned by the stage manager or like a bouncer or something of like, who do you think I am, Claire Bloom?
Good afternoon. Are you the stage doorkeeper?
No, I'm Claire Bloom.
Don't take any notice of him, Tub. He's not.
Thank you for telling me, William. I would never have guessed it if you hadn't been here.
And that was quite a fun fact. So another living person.
So that's number 3 then. So we've got.
I can't remember. Was it
Tommy Steele was the other.
Tommy Steele. Yeah. So which episode is Claire mentioned in, John?
The Fate. Not mentioned by Hancock, but mentioned by one of the side characters.
Ah, okay.
On Claire Bloom, said in a very mocking voice, because obviously it's very much not Claire Bloom.
That's a great spot, John, because that was never on my radar at all before. I mean, I thought that Tommy Steele was in there somewhere, but I couldn't find it originally. And we know about Cliff Richard, of course, because that's a pretty famous episode.
Yeah.
But I've listened to The Fate, goodness knows how many times, and that's never jumped out at me. It should have done, but it's never jumped out at me.
There we go.
It's a great episode, actually, that one, because you get Bill dressed up as Invisible Man, don't you? Covered in bandages or something.
Pretending he's Laurence Olivier, yes.
Pretending to be Solari.
Sorry. Spoiler alert.
I've had 60-something years to have listened to the episode by now. So then, what's been in the Hancock headlines this week, chaps?
So in Hancock headlines this week, Tim and I will be visiting the Talking Pictures show at St Albans, 21st of March. We will be there on the Saturday. The event runs for 2 days. We have a stall with lots of archives and merchandise. So it'd be great to see some of our listeners there. So 21st of March, Talking Pictures event in St Albans. Looking forward to it.
I've got another bit of news. It's not really Hancock news, the society news, in that I had a package of tapes arrive today. They always seem to come just as we're doing a podcast, which is quite fun. But essentially, a guy in Australia called Aaron come across some videotapes. Now, normally when people send us tapes and things are found, they're audio tapes, of course, found in people's lofts. But these were some videotapes that cropped up in Australia, allegedly containing material from Hancock's appearances in Australia. So they have got some labelling on referring to Hancock in Australia. Some of them are quite short. One of them appears to be that interview he did with Nancy, someone. I'm sure you'll remember it, Martin.
Something Special Nancy is the programme that he did, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's about 15 minutes and it's a live performance for the programme Something Special Nancy.
I used to like it, though, even as a kid, those sixpenny Saturday morning matinees, you know? You remember those? Used to see good things then, things like I was a teenage werewolf and born to be naked. Good, uplifting stuff, that was. And there you be, chocolate ripple in one hand, drink on a stick in the other, half a bar of palm toffee, fag on. The organ's going raving mad up and down, changing colour, green, purple, blue, yellow. The lights go down, the bloke next to you starts slashing the upholstery.
Yes, Something Special Nancy. So one of them is that. But we hope, these might actually be much better recordings because they appear to be master tapes. One of them's a U-matic tape, which I recognise because we used to use U-matic tapes at work. But the others are different formats, but they are labelled as masters. So they've been sent to us all the way from Australia. I shall be talking to you guys about how we take that forward and if we know anyone who can transfer them or whatever to see what we can do. But we think we have a few contacts who can do that for us. So that's a bit of good news.
Excellent.
That sounds great. And it'd be lovely to see what is on those.
Now for our main subject, the restoration and sort of extended edits, if that's the right term, of Hancock's Half Hour with our special guest, Ted Kendall. Welcome to the podcast, Ted.
Yes, welcome, Ted.
Nice to be here, thank you.
And I suppose one of the first things we'd sort of like to chat with you is how you discovered your love of radio comedy, because obviously that encompasses the Goons, the Navy Lark, and Journey into Space, which obviously is more drama and things like that. What were your early experiences of those sort of shows?
Sunday lunchtimes growing up in the 60s. Over Sunday lunch we had the Light programme and later Radio 2 on, and the usual fare, once family favourites, was very often the Navy Lark and something else, which sometimes was Clitheroe. No comment.
I could never get into that myself.
I'm sorry, I'll read that again, that sort of stuff. A bit of Al Reed, I remember.
You must be the same age as me because they're the exact same programmes I used to listen to, yeah.
Yes, Comedy Experience, yes. And it sort of grew from there.
The Telegoons was how you first got into the Goon Show, I believe.
Yes, I because the Telegoons was going out in '63 when I was about 4. I took to it immediately. I loved it. I well remember liking it so much that when the BBC in their wisdom decided to repeat An Unearthly Child, which was the first Doctor Who episode, immediately before they broadcast the second episode, and therefore had to move the Telegoons, I was considerably put out. I still remember seeing this picture of Carol Ann Ford with a transistor pressed to her ear for the second time and thinking, why on earth am I watching this when I could be watching the Telegoons? But there you are, that's partisanship for you, I suppose. And well, it's something to wind the Whovians up with, which is always a good thing.
Well, to be fair, Doctor Who's had many a commercial release, and the Telegoons has never been sort of repeated or restored since. And I it's got this mythic status because it's like the copies I've seen have been very ropey, but it maybe on original transmission it looked a bit better.
Yeah, it was unexceptionable by the standards of the time. I was shot on 16mm, and I think there are decent copies of about 3/4 of it in the hands of the BBC.
Come in. My name is Ned Seagood. I've come to help fight Lurgy. First Louis Pasteur, Madame Cruet, Percy Thrower, and now me.
You silly, twisted boy. What are your qualifications?
I was struck off the rolls twice.
You can only be struck off the rolls once.
That'll give you some idea of my importance.
But the right situation is murky on those. I did try to go into it when I was first researching Goons in depth with official sanction in about 1986, 87. And I did get to talk to, I think, Tony Young, who was one of the original producers of the film. But there are rights and clearance issues, and it gets involved with the estates of the principals and their perceptions of how successful or otherwise the Telegoons were, which is why there's never actually been a full-blown official release.
When the rights get murky and people don't know who owns what, that can make things very complicated and just mean you never see something ever again, as a rule.
Yeah.
Yes, you can get very bogged down in rights negotiations. I tend to make that somebody else's problem, or just do stuff that's out of copyright anyway.
Yeah,
probably good. But I mean, the Telegoons. I have seen all the films, and it was just I thought it was a brilliant visual portrayal of the Goon Show, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was different soundtracks, wasn't it, for the Telegoons, Ted?
The original intention was to use the radio shows as soundtracks, and that got scuppered by the fact that the BBC wouldn't release them. So they had to be re-recorded, and they were, partly at least, at Olympic Studios in Barnes. And when I acquired most of the tapes which were left by Angus Mackenzie when he died, who was proprietor of Olympic Studios at the time, I found about 15 minutes of rehearsal material for one of those sessions. So
fantastic.
Well, that was a bit of a find. It was nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, gold dust almost, because rehearsals of that era, you don't. There's not much. I think there's been a couple of bits of the Goon stuff that's appeared, but purely by chance and through the right people's lights, shows yourself looking in the right places.
Yes, well, I mean, most of the Goon rehearsal material has been out on the compendium. There's bits, I think, of 3 or 4 shows in rehearsal one way and another, but that was the result of a lot of digging.
Yeah, I can well imagine. In fact, one of our listeners asked the question about that material. Philip Fidget said he noticed there was a lot of this sort of rehearsal material on the Goon Show Compendia, but nothing for the Hancock side. So I presume that there were no engineers recording at the time of the Hancocks, but they were doing that for the Goon Show.
No, I have never, as far as I can remember, come across any unofficial Hancock material of that kind. In fact, there was a pretty good attempt to bury the show altogether. For instance, the clean recordings of the Hancock's half-hour theme as used for radio, I've never found them. We know that those used for the first 3 series were ceremonially destroyed because they got involved in the Musicians' Union dispute in 1956. But the re-recordings, which were never actually the subject of a union dispute, those have just disappeared. And when you're repairing stuff, it's quite nice to have a clean SIG available. But, it just wasn't. And as for rehearsal material, not a scrap. There is this bit of Hancock rehearsing his lines on his domestic tape machine.
Yes.
Yeah, we've got a copy of that, I think, in our archives that someone sent to us many moons ago in the 80s, I think.
Oh, no, please, I wouldn't dream of taking it back. I endeavour to serve the authorities to the utmost of my poor puny powers, my zeal, my ardour for service, my dogs are waiting to be fed, if you will, if you have no further instructions for me. No special orders for my court. Good day, Your Excellency. Good day. Go on, you're next. There's nothing to be frightened of. I have the honour to introduce myself as School Superintendent, Titular Councillor lop off.
That's, I think, a bit of the servants that he's rehearsing, and a little bit of the government inspector, the TV play.
Of which, of course, no other trace remains either.
Yeah, the servants, no, nothing.
Now, it would be interesting at this distance to see what Hancock could actually do as in that sort of material. I mean, he very nearly did straight acting in The Punch and Judy Man.
Pretty close.
Or at least it was very understated as a comedy film, was it not?
Yeah.
The government inspector survives, doesn't it?
Yeah, that survives. But I think the other thing that he did that was a bit of straight acting, as it were, was The Man Who Could Work Miracles, which the script exists for, but not the soundtrack, sadly. Not the audio.
And that one would be interesting to find, because I think that used the Hancock theme music, even though it was a straight drama. So quite an interesting combination to see how that actually worked or didn't.
Well, it was more the sort of journey into space kind of drama rather than Gogol, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like done more in that style, I should imagine.
Yeah. So Ted, for your the Hancock side, was that your Sunday lunchtimes as well? Was that your introduction to Hancock?
No. Obviously, I heard about Hancock's death in '68. It didn't really have much impact on me, to be honest, for some time. The Goons grabbed me very hard around the time of the last Goon Show of all, and that set me off on that slippery slope. I suppose the thing that brought me into Hancock was partly I devoured the Goon Show Companion, which was Roger Wilmot's first book. Now, around that time, middle of the 70s, we have to bear in mind that it was fashionable to vilify Hancock because, he committed suicide, he'd been a drunk, he'd done this, he'd done that, and all this terrible stuff he'd done to all the people around him, in quotes. And this was part of the reason that Roger Wilmot's next book was Tony Hancock, Artiste, because his literary agent was Roger Hancock, who thought that time was overdue for a balanced book about his brother. He was correct. Now, this was brought home to me quite forcibly when I was doing material for one of the Collectibles boxes. What was Tony Bilbo's thing? Heroes for a Time.
Yes.
Right. And that was 76, 77. And it's a hatchet job.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got that in the archive, haven't we?
Yeah. Barry and Lynn Took are given free rein to tell us what a terrible man he was. Kenneth Williams, actually, for all the stuff that he writes in his diary, is about the most sympathetic interviewee there.
Yeah, and he was quite a spiky man, to say the least.
Well, this is the thing. You see, he allowed that Hancock had his foibles, and he was foolish to. It didn't work out well to drop Galton and Simpson. On the other hand, he could see why. He had some sympathy with what drove Hancock to do these things, and that it wasn't pure selfishness. It was a desire to extend his abilities.
He came backstage at the theatre I was working in, and I met him and we talked. And he said on that occasion, I'd like to do some things with you in the future, but I don't mean the sort of stuff, that with the radio thing. I don't mean that sort of stuff. I don't want any more of those cardboard. I mean, I am deliberately emphasizing the word. He said cardboard characters. You'd think, would you not, that anyone who gets that sort of material written for them would go down on their knees and thank God for sending them such a wonderfully abundant source of really very, very funny lines. I think he rejected it not because of malignance or arrogance. I honestly don't. I think it was rejected because he thought humour, comedy, had a higher function to fulfill. I think he thought of a comedy which would illuminate the dark places of the mind and really help enlighten, clarify human predicaments for all of mankind. And I think that that's a noble ambition. All right, there may be a terrible, almost sordid ending involved, but I can understand the sort of impetus which drives a man on in the way that it drove him.
And the thing that Williams pointed out was that he didn't realize that he had the crock of gold already, and he thought that he could go further and there was something more. You see, a couple of things to my mind with Hancock happened together. The Rebel failed internationally, good film though it was. He had the car accident, and I think those two things together shook him up rather, and he felt that he had to, if he wanted international recognition, he had to do something else.
Yeah,
which is why the East Team Hancock then got jettisoned in the brutal way that we're told it happened.
It was about sort of trying to be less of a gimmicky comedy and more realism, wasn't it, over time with Hancock? I think it's what he wanted-ish.
Well, there was this drift towards realism in, I mean, as Galton got better at a writing comedy, they were able to dispense with the props one by one. I mean, if you well, for instance, the rail strike from Series 2 is it's marvelously funny, but it's completely unlikely.
The thing now arriving on platform 4 is definitely a train, whatever you may think. It's the 10:23 special calling at all stations to Haywards Heath. The front 2 bathtubs for Brighton, the pram and the wheelchair for Worthing.
High pantomime, isn't it, almost,
Yes.
in a way? Yes.
Well, yes, but then you look at something like The Smugglers, which is all too plausible.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can imagine that actually happening.
Your nose is throbbing. Your nose always throbs when you're worried. All the blood drains from your face and goes into your nose. I've noticed it.
I'm all right, I tell you. Leave me alone.
Makes the rest of your face look so white.
I'm all right.
There it goes. It's throbbing again. Look at it. Bang, bang, bang. Look at it going there.
Will you stop staring at me?
But, obviously Hancock wanted more. Anyway, sorry, the point I was making was that Roger wrote this book, and I bought it because obviously, Goons, Hancock, radio comedy was obviously the next thing to look at. So a lot of my introduction to Hancock was actually reading that book before I heard many of the shows.
How old was you then, Ted? What age group were you?
I would have been, I was born in 59. So I would have been, at university at the time.
Right.
And then the sort of next thing that brought me into contact with Hancock was when I went to transcription service at the BBC. Long story short, my degree's in electronics. I went to the BBC. I went to university largely at the BBC suggestion because I asked when I was 15, 16, I want to work for the BBC. How do I do it? Do I go to university? Do I join you? And they turned around and said, look, if you have the chance to university, by all means, take it. We will still be here. Mm-hmm. So I actually quoted that at the interview, and and the guy behind the desk here, okay, so now you want a job? And I said, yes, please.
Yes, please.
All
yes.
Right then. Because I had an electronics degree rather than an arts degree, I couldn't get into actual operations. I was put into planning and installation. I'm competent enough to do it, but it wasn't what I really wanted to do. I wanted to do ops. And the only bit of the BBC which still had engineers as such on the knobs and doing editing, all that kind of thing, was this little scion out in West London called Transcription Service. Now, of course, I knew a transcription service from Wilmot's book. That's where a lot of the Goon stuff was. And there was I sort of kicking my heels in capital projects department, thinking this isn't really what I want to do. And then in the internal paper of the BBC, Ariel, there was a job advertised for a senior balance engineer at transcription. somebody had been promoted to producer, and that was that. And with the aplomb born of complete ignorance. I mean, all right, I'd been the nut in the corner with the Revox at university because that had been a big thing, hi-fi and recording, since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, really. So I, knowing nothing about this thing, go in for a job as a senior balance engineer. And I'm sorry, I've told this story before, but it bears repetition. And I turn up for the interview, and then I'm handed a slip of paper saying, okay, well, before the interview, you are to do a mix down of this multi-track tape. Oh, I mean, my stomach basically dropped through the centre of the earth there, because I'd never done a multi-track mix before. I knew in theory what it was all about, but knowing theoretically wasn't what driving a mixing desk is about, and actually doing it, it's like knowing what you had to do to drive a car.
Yeah,
and then you're sat there with the instructor saying, "Now let the clutch up slowly, feel the biting point." I had no time for all that. I was pitched straight in because I had 15 minutes to mix a 3-minute track, and surprisingly enough, I got away with it to the extent that there was actually something for me to be asked about at the interview. Like, why have you done this? Why have you done that? And at least I was able to make sort of a fist of it. Anyway, needless to say, because I was trying to... There's culture in the BBC, right, is if you're interested in a department, apply for a job there. Even if it's above your pay grade, apply for the job. Show the interest, which is, in fact, what I'd done. So when the rejection slip came through, I rang up... the technical manager at Transcription, Adrian Revel, and said, "Well, it was good of you to humour me." And he said, "Well, not at all, Dad, actually. Considering you had zero experience, you didn't do badly. Would you like an attachment?" Would I like an attachment? Of course I would. And it all sort of went downhill from there. Now, when you go into any sort of outfit like that, you start off doing the low-level jobs. The copying, the filing, all that sort of thing. And I was given this job, which was to copy a couple of Hancocks off 16-inch discs for a bloke who was being made redundant. And he wanted to take a couple of copies with him. And that was The Chef That Died of Shame and The Test Match.
Hey, yo. Saber gun.
You haven't bought anything yet.
Well, give me two and make the second one the same as the first one.
Yeah, but what shall I make the first one?
You're a bit nosy for a barman, aren't you?
I'm not a barman. This is a chemist shop.
So I listened to those and thought, hello, this is quite funny.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, at that point on, I mean, I started having my hooks out for Hancock material. But I actually came into Hancock quite gradually from that point. Are you still awake? Sorry.
We certainly are.
Because obviously, it must have been quite a lot of work that was involved in sort of sourcing over the years and discovering, as Wilmot's book said, in 78, I think it was, there were only, 30-something episodes sort of in the BBC Sound Archives, plus then copies of the transcription discs that then came back to the archive later in the 80s.
It wasn't just that. Yeah, the representation of Hancock's half hour in Sound Archives into the 60s was really pretty poor compared to the Goon Show, which is like 44, 45 shows. Hancock was, I think, about 20. Part of this was to do with, I don't know whether part of it was political or not. He parted from the BBC on fairly sniffy terms, or whether people thought it was outmoded. I mean, you have to hear the what Tom Sloan said about Hancock when he died, that he was really talking about not Hancock himself, just Hancock himself, but his humour as in the past tense, even then. So maybe there was this feeling that was all that was necessary to do. Then there was the repeat series in 72. Lots of that material came from the material that Transcription held, because Hancock stuff sold pretty nicely abroad, whatever domestic BBC thought about it. And that domestic repeat series, I think was sourced partly from Transcription material, but that was heavily edited in some things. The Serrano to Hancock, the whole sequence about, I thought I'd doing away with myself, and kicked the chair away and the ceiling fell in.
Ankle deep in fag ends when I got up this morning. I thought about doing away with myself.
Oh, why didn't you?
I tried. I tied the rope round my neck. And I kicked the chair away.
What happened?
The ceiling fell in.
All that was cut for obvious reasons. The memory of the suicide was still fresh. And all references to drink or to Hancock being drunk were removed.
So not just topical stuff. Yeah.
Well, and those versions went into Sound Archives. So even the Sound Archive stuff that was accessioned in 72 was a corrupt version. It wasn't complete. So, yes, it's a bit of a minefield. When it comes to sort of sourcing the material, one starts off with the original transcription issues. However many that is, it's 72, isn't it?
I'm not sure on the exact number. It's quite a number.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I used to be encyclopedic about this, but it was a while ago. So you have, as it were, the original issues, which were done in the 50s and were trimmed according to the editing standards of the editing guidelines of the 50s, like topical references and all that sort of thing, and references to Christmas, which caused a few problems in the espresso bar, which I can come to. And that's one source. And then there was the Best of Hancock series, which I think was 24, 26. Now, for those, Transcription got hold of the domestic recordings, uncut, copied those, made the cuts, but kept the cuts. And this is the crucial point.
Yeah.
The cuts were all strung together, some of them backwards, some of them forwards, but they were all there for all but 2 of the episodes, I think. So those could be brought back to transmission length. And then once you've exhausted that, then you start having to go to domestic recordings.
Yeah.
And I got fairly lucky when I started off doing this sort of doing restoration professionally. I came across John R.T. Davis because he was a Goons man. And the first time I went down there, he sort of, persuaded me that sound restoration was something I should be thinking heavily about because there was a gap in the market.
Yeah.
And by way of an introduction, he said, look, box of tapes here. Now, the guy recorded lots of Goons and Hancock. He recorded lots of jazz. The jazz has been winnowed out. But take this box and see what you can do with it. There's quite a lot of Hancock and Goon material in there. And then there have been other sort of fortuitous finds. I bid for this rather nondescript box of tapes on eBay 10, 15 years ago. And it arrives and there's like quite decent off-air recordings, good enough to plug gaps of things as far back as the 5th series.
Yeah.
So that's where that's why some of the revised restorations in the Collectibles happened, because I actually had the material. So Sid could say, yeah, now what am I going to do for Christmas presents? Which you couldn't before because material didn't exist.
Morning, Sid.
Morning, Fred. What's wrong?
Bad news, Sid. You know we had 4 of the boys working as temporary postmen for Christmas.
Yeah.
Well, it was more temporary than we thought. They got nicked last night with a sack full of registered parcels.
Now what am I going to do for Christmas presents? I was relying on them. Where are they?
They're in the local nick in the High Street.
They've been up before the beak yet?
No, tomorrow. We've got to get them out, Sid. Christmas dinner won't seem the same without them.
Yeah. How are we going to get them out?
And that's the thing, isn't it? That it's surprising that Series 5 seems to have the most episodes, both in the collectibles and the box sets from 10, 15 years ago, which sort of, I say extended, it's not the right word, but restored to their original length through additional domestic recordings compared to any of the early ones, from the fourth, third series. It's obviously lesser because there were less domestic recordings being made by sort of fans who then kept them,
The technology existed.
Yeah.
Back round about the turn of the 50s. The Monkhouse material, the All-Star Bill and that kind of thing. There's very little technically wrong with those recordings, but that equipment cost money, serious money then.
Yeah.
And FM broadcasting didn't start in this country till 55 officially. So if you wanted to get sort of studio quality off AM transmissions, you were into some very expensive kit at the time, which Monkhouse could afford. I mean, he was a scion of the Bird's Custard family, and he wasn't short of a few bob. But yeah, off-air material prior to 55 in any usable quality has been pretty scarce across the board, even Goon material.
I suppose in terms of that, you think of an episode such as the Stolen Petrol, which must have been probably from a low band sort of broadcast, because you've got bits of interference and Morse code and stuff that sort of creeps in, which is impossible to eliminate entirely, I suppose.
When you pay 12 and 6 a gallon, you're not mucking about, You'll just have to take precautions. Put a notice up. No petrol served without a pilot's license. Now, don't bother me. Get the pumps ready. Sid will be down with another lot soon. When you pay 12 and 6 a gallon, you're not mucking about, You'll just have to take precautions. Put a notice up. No petrol served without a pilot's license. Now, don't bother me. Get the pumps ready. Sid will be down with another lot soon.
Well, we redid the Stolen Petrol for the Collectibles, if memory serves.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, there are two sources for the Stolen Petrol. One of which was a tape which was sent to Sound Archives on the treasure hunt. And all I had was I did get sent the original tape of that. And that was very possibly recorded by somebody on a military base, because there's all sorts of telemetry bleeps there. When I did the first version, all I could do was notch filters. When the Collectibles came round, at that point, I had the use of Cedar Retouch, which is like Photoshop for sound.
Yeah.
And you can actually bring the sound up on a display, and if there's these meet, you can actually see where they are, take them out, replace them with a plausible bit of sound from slightly differently, either in time or in frequency. And you can actually eliminate that. The other thing was that by that time, I'd also got hold of another box of tapes. And this was a Sunday morning. I was browsing through eBay, and somebody put up Grundig TK5, was a decent domestic recorder at the time, and about 100 tapes, Goons, Hancock, etc. I have only moved quicker on eBay on one other occasion. When I got a bunch of EMI Stereosonics for about 12 quid, which is like astonishing. But this was pretty good, and the stuff was on its way to me. The quality wasn't wonderful, but it was good enough. And I was able to plug some of the gaps in the previous restoration. There's a bit near the end where Hancock says, "I only see the good in people."
I can't understand it, Bill. Sid hasn't sent any petrol down for 4 days now.
He won't be bringing any more in. Haven't you read the papers? Him and his gang were caught siphoning petrol out of parked cars in Regent Street last night. Making his own petrol, and you believed it all. He took you for a right mug all the way along the line.
I'm too trusting, that's my trouble. I only see the good in people. Still, we haven't done so badly out of it. We've got a garage doing a roaring trade.
Well, that's true. They've been flocking in ever since the word got round. Cars queuing up right down the street.
And on the first one, it was, I only see the in people. because it was Dirty Great Thump. So I was able to patch that in, that kind of thing. But no, that was a bit of a reconstruction job. But then that was something was rejected by Transcription on grounds of topicality. Was in fact the quality of the show. I mean, it's it's up there in the top dozen.
Yeah,
I think it's an extremely good one. So that was worth it.
Oh, I think it's got some wonderful lines and some wonderful moments, and this beer's got head on it.
10 gallons, all right?
Yes, please. And 2 gallons in the can to take home.
10 gallons it is.
And sleep and wink and I can't think and I Here.
What?
That petrol's got head on it.
Got head on it? Never.
It has. Look, he's frothing all out the top.
That's it. Go on. We shouldn't be doing this,
And Bernard's not making the money he was, are you, dear? No.
Yeah. Yeah, those little moments of...
Good afternoon.
Oh, good afternoon, your ladyship.
Fill her up, please. 20 gallons.
It's 12 and 6 a gallon, madam.
Oh, dear. I told you we should have brought a smaller car, Bernard. Well, I think we better make do with 2. He's not earning the money nowadays.
And when I listened to some of these things, I was like a 9-10-year-old or something. So the topical references went right over my head, and sometimes they still do. But once you sort of like you read up about it, you kind of start to get the history of the show and what they were taking the mickey out of. And it was quite topical for its day. It was quite cutting. It could be.
Well, I count myself lucky to have worked with Dennis Main Wilson on his history of radio comedy. And of course, by then he was, the elder statesman. And he's a curious fellow. Marvellous, but curious. He would sit there in the Kensington House bar, drinking halves and chasers and smoking like a chimney and pontificating. But if you were clever, you hung on his every word, because although he'd been putting about large amounts of alcohol, he was still making perfect sense. And he, this was near the end of his life, obviously, but he had realized that a lot of social history exists through comedy, going back as far as Hogarth, and others. And he's arranging an exhibition of cartoons, I seem to remember, illustrating social history. So, these references mattered to him. I know.
Yeah, because you look at things like the Espresso Bar, and that's a real picture of the 1950s high street as it was developing, and I think it's absolutely fascinating to look at 50s Britain through the eyes of Hancock's Half Hour, or indeed some of the other contemporary comedies.
Oh, yes, and the Studio Italian.
Indeed,
it's the title is the Espresso Bar, which is incorrect to start with, and then you've got Due Cappuccino. No, it should be Due Cappuccini. But the point is, there is the pretension.
Oh yeah,
that this is something new and exotic and wonderful, and it's come from Europe, so it must be wonderful. So, yeah, it's sharp social commentary, a lot of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Nothing like a pretentious, hypocritical character to laugh at, because we can kind of sometimes all recognise a little bit of ourselves in that,
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Childish fool.
Yes, although I have to say, when I was first doing the Hancocks in bulk, as it were, for the boxes, I got very depressed at one point, because it seemed to me at that point that Galton and Simpson, whether they knew it or not, were espousing a Marxist worldview. That it doesn't really matter what the common man does, he will always end up where he started or worse for all his efforts.
Yeah.
And especially through the 4th and 5th series, you start to think, well, guys, can't you actually allow him to succeed at something? I mean, the unexploded bomb he does, he gets his own back on Sid.
Here, Sid, listen.
Run for it!
Hello, Sid.
What do you want?
What a pity about all your cars, isn't it?
Go on.
Yes, well, I'll tell you what I'll do.
Yes?
Just for you, of course.
Yes?
Special favour, a friend.
Yes, yes, yes.
I'll give you 25 quid for the scrap metal.
Very comical.
But those moments are quite rare, aren't they?
Very rare.
They are.
I think they always said it made better comedy for the character to fail rather than succeed. They said success is not funny.
There's a lot in that. It was just that the failure was so inevitable and unremitting, it seemed to me. But then when you get very close to this stuff, doing several of them in succession and pulling them apart in detail for technical reasons, you know, it did get me down at the time. I mean, I can see it in bigger perspective now. Well, there was a time I didn't laugh at the goons, you see. I just got so close to them, I couldn't see the joke anymore.
Yeah. Delboy failed all the time, and then he won the he got the money from selling the watch, and eventually he succeeded. But as soon as he succeeded, John Sullivan said he had to lose it. You know, which again is humour from failure.
Well, I suppose I'm going to catch it for this, but I didn't find a lot of John Sullivan very funny.
Do you not?
No, I don't know why. I mean, comedy is a very individual thing, and you know there are people who are convulsed by it. But you know, I laughed hilariously at Father Ted. I laughed hilariously at Red Dwarf, and there are people who can't stand those. But you know, it's a it's a big world. There's room for all of us.
Yeah,
Indeed, there is. Yeah.
Lots of different styles. Lots of different styles. I'm fascinated by the box sets, though, Ted, because I think the Hancock's Half Hour CD box sets, they were probably the first of any of the radio comedies to get a box set. I think the Goon Show Compendia started after that. They were later. In terms of how that sort of got off the ground, did you have any involvement in getting the BBC to agree to actually produce a box set of every surviving episode?
Not directly, no. I was working on the individual Goon releases and some of the Hancock CDs. As you know, I mean, some of the earlier radio collection releases of Hancock were pretty poor. Like Jack's Return Home actually had a groove jump when it was being dubbed off the record, and it went out like that. Now, how on earth did that happen? Anyway, having done some Goon stuff, I was asked to do Hancock stuff as well, so I did that. And I was working to Piera Johnson for most of that. She was too, I see, and Mary Callum Kirian was the great Panjandrum, but largely I worked to Piera. And she just appeared on the end of the phone one day and said, Roger wants to put Hancock's Half Hour out of box sets. You up for it? Well, it was a superfluous question, really. Of course I was.
Yeah.
I did actually say, yes, but look, I'm going to need cooperation from transcription service, from domestic, from, well, I'll try and handle the Hancock Society. I sent an email saying, I'm such and such. The BBC have asked me to produce Hancock's Half Hour radio shows for CD, and I would like access to any archive material you have. Anyway, people that, you know, the likes of Jeff Hammonds helped me out on that quite considerably. I mean, there were always sort of disagreements on the Hancock side about what constituted good technical quality, but that was just something we had to smooth out. However, having stipulated that, then transcription at that point wouldn't let me actually have the quarter-inch tapes. So they made dubs of all the tapes they had.
So would those have been their quarter-inch master tapes that they made the discs from then?
Yes, because I was no longer working for transcription. The guy who was heading up transcription at that time decided I was no longer persona grata and couldn't be trusted with the stuff. Well, fortunately, we were in the era of DAT at this point, so I was sent DAT copies. Unfortunately, there was a very good engineer there who I'd been a contemporary, Chris Gibbs, who was a great fellow. What he didn't know about the technical side wasn't worth knowing, so I got some very good transfers of the discs and the tapes to work with. And I just sort of knitted it all together as best I could. I think those original issues still stand up pretty well today, to be honest.
Because the first set of CD box sets was it the late 90s or very early noughties, at the year 2000, give or take, I think, when they came out in series box sets.
I would think so. Yes, I would think so.
The first series I think I have of those original, not the whole set, but the first series, and there's pretty much not much difference between that and the reissue 10 or so years later in, I don't know, 2012, 2013.
Well, most of the subsequent box was just taken from my dubs. I wasn't involved, as far as I remember, in the reissue, which is why some of the weaker brethren got included in the box. What was it? 4-2,
such as the Diet and Sid James's dad. That are poorer quality, but they exist.
Well, they weren't up to scratch when we were doing the boxes. Yes, I mean, I did do some issues of some pretty dubious stuff as single issues on demand. I mean, after all, I'm a professional. If somebody comes along and says, "Will you do this?"
Here's some money for doing this. Then
well,
pays the bills.
Yes, as the man says, I'm a craftsman. I do what I can with what I can get hold of.
I say, shouldn't you have a horse to do that? Yes, well, strictly speaking, we should, yes, but well, where is it? But it's like I said, you can't get the meat these days. Being a craftsman, I make do with what I can get hold of.
But there is a point beyond which some of these recordings cannot be pushed.
Yeah.
I think personally it was a mistake to put out. I think there were one CD which was some very poor TV soundtracks.
Oh yeah, that'll be the Flight of the Red Shadow and the Wrong Man. I think came out on a single disc together.
And I was sort of sitting there doing it, thinking, well, yes, all right, people want to hear it, but yes, well, perhaps they will hear bits of it.
If they listen very hard with the good quality headphones, then maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a little like that.
Yes. Yeah.
You don't need you any longer. You can go. Oh, no, I'm staying here. I'm protecting my friend's interest. I know the procedure, and I'm going to represent him. Well, do you wish this person to represent you? No, thank you. Here's somebody, Mud. I know what they can do and what they can't do. I've been held on for speaking hundreds of times. Now, you leave it to me. I'll get you out of it. All right, then, very well. Mr. James will represent me until that time Mr. Hartley Shawcroft turns up. Right. Martin, take that.
Well, no, I was saying that there's a point where there's just not enough information available to make anything reasonable of it. And that's regrettable, but it's why, of course, I and the likes of me keep looking out for odd domestic tapes here and there, because things do occasionally turn up, as we know fairly recently. It can happen.
You can't put back what's missing from a recording. If it's got no top or something like that, then that will stay that way to some extent, I suppose.
In restoration, it's astonishing what you can get away with if you know what you're doing. But there does come a point where, as I say, there just isn't the information. For instance, take the espresso bar again. What am I going to do for Christmas presents? The change in quality over the edit in the finished thing, I don't think you can hear.
The cells are down in the basement, aren't they?
Yeah.
What's on either side of them?
On one side is the baker's shop, and on the other side is that new coffee bar I opened the other day.
Oh, that's that. You've got the new coffee bar?
Yeah.
The old spaghetti?
That's the one.
Right next to the cells?
Yes.
Order Christmas dinner for 6. I think we're going to be all right.
Very subtle.
Well, exactly. But it took an awful lot of nudging and an awful lot of technology to get it to that point.
Yeah. Well imagine,
because it was a slow speed recording. It was off FM, so there was some information up there. But then you're trying to make things such that the hiss doesn't change over the edit, because that's a dead giveaway. And you want the perspective of the voice to be the same, so it doesn't appear to be forward or back. And it's tricky, and there's a lot you can do. But sometimes a recording comes up which is just too far gone. And very often you see it'll be a multi-generation copy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which, and you lose in analog, you lose a surprising amount of information, even with one copy. and just makes it more and more difficult to get stuff out.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I think we had Robin Rivio and Mark Holloway both asked, was there anything that could be done with the Diet Sid James's Dad or the television soundtracks? But I think it sounds as though they've gone as far as they can with current technology.
I think so. And I did note this reference to AI, except in some very carefully constrained circumstances. To my mind, AI is a snare and a delusion. All AI, as most people understand it, is a weighted poll of what is on the internet.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, like, I've always considered AI to be like, if you're applying it to a photo or to an audio, essentially it's not restoring what's missing, it's redrawing it as it thinks it should look based on X, Y, Z, I suppose, isn't it? And it's the same with sound.
One of the things about why people talk about AI now is because a couple of years ago, the Beatles were able to redo a record with John Lennon, and all the publicity in the newspapers was that this was because of advances with AI, that they're now able to do that. And I think that people like me and many of the people who listen to the podcast are not experts on audio, but as soon as that Beatles thing come out, people are saying, well, why can't we do that to the Hancock episodes? So I think there's a lot of lack of understanding about that.
Well, to my mind, Now and Then should have stayed as a demo.
Yeah, I think a lot of the whatever it was they used on it was separating the vocals from the piano or something somehow. But obviously that's an interpolation.
Well, up to a point you can do that. You see, AI, of course. I mean, journalists, they all work in shorthand.
Yeah.
But AI originated from something called machine learning. Well, back in the 90s, I mean, in Cedar, when they were talking about something to take thumps as opposed to clicks out of dubs from recordings, they were using a form of what you could call AI then, but they called it, or it was more likely known as machine learning. In other words, it would look at all the thumps that were happening once per rev and would average all those to create an accurate picture of the thump, which it could then invert and use to remove the problem.
Yeah.
To an extent, machine learning does enable you, can enable you to tease strands out from one another, but that's not the same as actually creating things. AI creates nothing.
Yeah.
All it comes up, it's like people talk about, AI script writing and AI composition. No, it's not creation at all. It's a melange of what has gone before.
Largely, yeah.
Well, if you call that creation, then
pinching other people's.
Yeah.
But everyone thinks it's a magic bullet, and it's not. That's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it isn't. The magic. A lot of the magic in civilization comes from good old Mark I grey matter.
Yeah. I mean, I'd imagine some of the most challenging elements of when you've had to do a restoration is where you have to go through manually I'm estimating a lot of things where there's been, it's from the record is the only source and it's, got a lot of surface noise and you're having to manually take out a lot of clicks and things like that. It must be quite intense,
Well, I mean, it turns your brain in the end. I don't do a vast amount of sound restoration now, partly because there isn't the demand, and partly because everybody's a sound restorer now. They put their stuff out on YouTube. But partly because, 30 years of it is probably enough. I mean, as far as that's concerned, I'm basically semi-retired now. If there is something that really interests me, yes, I will do it. But after a while, you do get a bit used up. I mean, I shudder to think, all right, you don't have to take every click out manually these days. Cedar properly driven is very effective, but there are things that Cedar can't take out and you have to do those manually. And sometimes there's things that Cedar misses altogether because of the bandwidth of the recording you've been given. I mean, there was sorry, it's a slight peripheral, but there was a Paul Temple adventure which came back to the BBC from Australia, but all they got were the dubs of the 78s. It was that far back. It was issued on 78s rather than 16-inch. It was from 1942 or something. The actual quality of the dubs was quite good, but because of the way they'd restricted the bandwidth on the dubs, Cedar could not get hold of any of the surface noise, none of it. So every click had to come out by hand. With the manual Cedar, where something akin to retouch, where basically you define where the click is and you ask the thing to fill it in with plausible audio from either side. And that ran into 5,000 clicks. Now,
just a few.
Even to get up to speed, it's something like 45 seconds to find a click, locate a click, take a click out, move on to the next one. So you do the sums.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of man hours.
A lot of man hours, and becomes quite tedious by the end, I should think.
Well, yes, but you just have to sort of, take the long view, and that. See, part of the thing is that if you do it properly, people just do not believe how damaged it was to start with.
Yeah.
And they're saying, you want how much?
Forget how many hours work it was going to take.
Can we just go back to our list of questions, Ted? We got a few here we can probably group together in one big question for you, because Matthew Newton asked if you have a favourite Tony Hancock episode. Deborah Gatty asked, what is your favourite vintage audio recording you've helped to discover, recover and restore? And then Graham Sinden said, what restoration you're most proud of?
Favourite Hancock? I suppose this is a bit off beam, but there you go. I like it. Is Bill and Father Christmas?
Oh, right, yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, a lot of people like that, yeah.
It is not mean-spirited, and the characters all have an astonishing amount of depth in that script.
Yeah.
Now, Hattie, of course, had been away. She'd been away having a baby, I think, and she just that was the last Hancock somehow she was involved in, wasn't it? I think.
Oh, it's the one they came back and did late, wasn't it? I think, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
With the transcription recordings or something, yeah.
That's right.
At the same time, wasn't it?
But there you've got Griselda, who is, that is the best performance Hattie gave as Griselda Pugh by a mile.
Oh, just to confirm, she didn't leave to have a baby at that time. That was misremembered by Ray and Allen, I think.
Oh, was okay. Well, anyway, the point was she'd been away and she came back, and you've even got that Hancock isn't being just grumpy for the sake of it, but he just can't see why Bill is so fixated on Father Christmas, and he's genuinely concerned for him, and it just strikes me as one of the most human of the Hancock scripts.
No, somebody should tell him.
That's it. Go on, take it all away from him. Destroy his little world, strip him of his beliefs, trample his dreams and his hopes into the dust. Have you no spark of humanity inside you?
Oh, turn it up, Sid, please. You know as well as I do it's not right for a man of his years to write letters to Father Christmas. It's about time he faced up to the facts of life, ugly as they may be.
I got into that in some considerable detail. That was one of the first restorations I did by coincidence.
Warren Mitchell was in that one, wasn't he?
Oh, yes, he was.
He
yes,
was the
he
doctor.
was.
Yeah.
Great, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
and point is, Warren Mitchell's remembered these days just for Garnet.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's a lot more than Garnet.
But he was an actor of considerable range and ability.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, though, of course, that part was originally written for Kenny Williams. And given what he made of the vet in the insurance policy, that would have been a scream as well.
Get your clothes off. Certainly not. Take your clothes off.
No.
Now, come on. I haven't much time. I've got to go and examine a sick pig in Cheltenham.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no,
Yes, yes.
I think Warren Mitchell made it, and the only approach is a psychological one. How do you mean?
Yes.
Wonderful little exchange there.
The human mind is a very strange piece of machinery.
Well, it certainly is. A right Heath Robinson affair, that is.
This problem must be tackled with great delicacy. The only approach is the psychological one.
How do you mean?
Well, you must regain his confidence. Recreate the happy world of his childhood. Play with him. You must take the place of his little friends, the only people he's ever really known and trusted.
As far as I know, the only things he used to play with were sheep and kangaroos.
No, I'm very fond of that. So what was the second one?
So, what is your favourite vintage audio recording that you've helped discover, recover, and restore?
Oh, favourite? There are a few. Well, there's two that particularly spring to mind. Neither of them are radio comedy, as it happens. One is Charlie Parker, the pioneer of bebop, an artist who came and went in fairly short order. A completely chaotic and ultimately tragic life, which produced some fabulous music. And he first came to real prominence in a group with Dizzy Gillespie, who managed to survive him by decades and became an elder statesman of jazz. And the first really acknowledged seminal bebop session was 6 sides made for Guild Records in 1945, including some of the bop anthems like 52nd Street Theme and Salt Peanuts. And a guy who ran a label in Canada, it's an American, but he actually ran the label from Canada. Sorry, it's Canadian, but he ran the label from the States. Get it right. Anyway, he, by some miracle, had come across acetate recordings of a broadcast made by this group, including Gillespie and Parker, 6 weeks before those sides were cut for Guild Records. And you have got the first incarnation of all these things which became the most popular bop tunes. And it's been done in front of an audience, and recording was of some considerable quality, although it had problems that had to be overcome. And it fell to me to turn this into something issuable. And that was an enormous charge. I was very pleased to have been involved with that. And the other thing that I'm going to pin on the wall and call perhaps the biggest achievement was Kathleen Ferrier, who was a contralto who was very popular in the years after the war. She had a voice which was unmistakable, and she had this fairy tale rise. She was a Lancashire lass who was at one stage a telephone operator. She competed for the voice of Tim and missed out by one superfluous aspirate in the reading test, that kind of thing. Anyway, she was an amateur musician from quite early on, until she was heard by one or two who said, "Oh boy, that's a voice you should do something with." Anyway, she rose very quickly in post-war to great renown, and she died prematurely of cancer in 1953. And a lot of the recordings she made for the BBC had been destroyed in the ordinary course of events, as the phrase has it.
Yeah.
But some had been recorded by a fellow called Leach, who was an engineer. He recorded them on homemade equipment. And these eventually ended up in the National Sound Archive. And here was a CD's worth of stuff that she either hadn't recorded commercially or for the BBC, or had been destroyed. And it was in a terrible state technically. It was recorded off radio. There was cross modulation. There was interference. This man's recording machines weren't terribly good. The pitch was wavering all over the place. And as you probably know, Wow and Flutter are the final frontier almost when it comes to sound restoration. Only comparatively recently has there been software to cope with it.
Yeah.
As the proprietor of the label said, well, that's not a restoration, that's a resurrection. And yes, it probably was. It took 3 months of my life, and it was received ecstatically by the label proprietor when I sent the disc, and it was rather less ecstatic when she got presented with the bill. But never mind, that's the way things go. But that I am extremely proud of. Brought back a lot of material which would otherwise just have languished in an archive,
never to be heard again.
Well, maybe not, but at least, I mean, this is part of what you do with restoration, that you make something accessible to a wide audience. They don't have to listen through all this muck. That I take all the trouble, so you don't have to. Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I felt I'd really sort of, crowned my career doing that one. I felt I really sort of left something for the ages there. I mean, the thing I'm probably going to be remembered for is the Goon Show Compendia. I mean, why the hell not?
It's what gets the most press, I suppose, isn't it? Yeah. But
well, I mean, it is what it is. But I mean, I've been a professional in the business for decades, but no, I mean, there's other stuff I could mention. There's the sort of the complete commercial Fats Waller, the complete commercial George Formby, 95% of the commercial Django Reinhardt. All in what I like to believe are some of the best transfers you'll ever hear. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I can be reasonably proud of, I think. But the Parker and the Ferrier, I think, sit at the top. I mean, the Goons and things has been marvelous to bring things back, but those I think are the ones I'm most proud of.
I think one of the interesting things with some of the collectibles of the Hancock collectibles is that some of the soundtracks, obviously quite a number of episodes, are both the longer, most complete edit, but also entirely from a domestic recording as opposed to the BBC's professional recording. But I think a large reason for that is that those domestic recordings were good enough and have more dynamic range, whereas the BBC's archive copy, although it might sound like it's nice and clear, it's probably compressed to within an inch of its life through various things that have been done to the recording over the decades.
No.
No?
No. If you can get back to, see, in sound archives, the furthest you're going to be away from the master is the transmission tape having been cut to disc, and you have to bring it back off disc. But there's very little in the way of conscious dynamic compression involved, certainly in archive work. Stuff being compressed within an inch of its life, I would say, as far as BBC radio these days is concerned, absolutely. Everything you hear on FM certainly is put through a ghastly device called an Optimod. So if you're talking about off-air stuff recently, or stuff that the BBC broadcasts, supposedly from its archives recently, then yes, it will have gone through all this processing. Such processing is obvious. You see, I don't know who the BBC is broadcasting to on FM these days. Presumably it's to people in cars, where you have to keep the dynamic range down.
Yeah.
No, I have to admit, I'm not a huge fan of the sound that comes over FM these days, but the actual sound quality of the BBC archive material, we have to qualify this slightly, obviously.
Yeah.
If you're talking about the original 15-inch per second full track tape, or a straight dub thereof, you're on pretty safe ground.
Yeah.
If it's a disc cut from the tape, then usually it's pretty good, although certainly in the early days of LP, there were some pretty peculiar equalization curves and groove profiles used. But that's not a dynamic thing. Once you've actually got the formula to reverse that, then that's fine. You can get the material off. But once dynamic compression becomes part of the transmission chain, and once data compression becomes part of the transmission chain, then yes, you're getting further and further away. Now, it is true, however, that an off-air recording taken, let us say, at 7.5 inches per second on a ferrograph off a decent FM tuner in the back end of the 50s can be remarkably good. If memory serves, the unexploded bomb Now, it wasn't from the 50s, but it was taken off air, and I think there was a repeat in 62. I'm not encyclopedic on this anymore, as I've mentioned. But that was taken basically off air. It was played from Broadcasting House. It was put out on FM. I think it was picked up from Rootham and recorded at 7.5 on a domestic tape machine. And that, as mastered, has no obvious sign that it went through a transmission chain. It's actually very good. So, yes, you can get stuff which is close to master tape quality down a transmission chain if the transmission chain is old enough, if you're with me. So it hasn't got things like Optimods in it.
Yeah. Pre-edits as well that happened in the 70s, of course, to some of the broadcasts.
Yes. Well, there's an added complication with the 72 stuff, is that the BBC was having one of its economy drives at the time, and an awful lot of stuff was put into archives on. In fact, an awful lot of stuff for current consumption at that time was recorded on tape at 7.5 inches a second. Now, the problem with that is that professional machines, certainly at the time, were designed to run at 15 inches per second and work properly at 15 inches per second. They were a lot touchier at half that speed. You know, domestic machines optimized to work at 7.5, and they do very well. But a professional machine, apart from anything else, is designed to run day in, day out for years.
Yeah.
And some different design compromises are made, and they are predicated around the tape going at 15 inches per second. So you have these things that, one, they're edited, and two, the quality is slightly inferior because they're running slow speed tape on machines which aren't optimum for it. So yes, there are some little wrinkles there, but it's not intentional processing, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. There are losses, but with off-air recordings, you can get very lucky sometimes.
I think the Last Bus Home, I think, was one of the ones in particular that seemed the alternate recording or domestic recording was better.
Yes, because yes, certainly, because the first time I did the Last Bus Home, the only thing I had to plug the gaps in the TS thing were a cassette, which had been through a couple of generations, and the sound quality changed across, and this is the BBC Home Service, was only marginally acceptable. But I had a little stroke of luck. Some of these shows were repeated, I think, in 64, 63, 64. It was quite an extensive repeat series. And I'd had sort of dribs and drabs of that. And then one of the boxes came out, and it was a Goon Show Compendium, that was it. Because it was one of the later volumes, because I was doing some post-Goon stuff. Milligan did a thing called the OMKM show in 62. And I had decent recordings of 5 of the 6, and the 6th one I just had to go with what I had, which was frankly pretty poor. And then this chap wrote to me and said, I noticed that I've got a very nice off-air copy of that. I mean, this is an occupational hazard. You do your best with the material to hand, and then somebody comes along and says,
something else turns up.
Yeah, I've got a really nice one of that. I think,
anyway, that.
Yes. So I sort of said, that's terribly interesting. He said, well, look, I think perhaps you should be the man to look after these. Boom. About 30 tapes. Omar Khayyam's, and almost all the Hancock 64 repeats. And one of those was The Last Bus Home. And this stuff was pretty good. It was done on, good domestic equipment of the time. Often FM tuner. The technology, certainly FM in mono, was pretty mature by that time. And they were as good off-air recordings as you could reasonably wish for. So that is where some of the restorations on the Collectibles came back from as well. And The Last Bus Home was one which benefited from that batch.
Are you looking for a fight?
I don't mind.
Would you care to step out onto the curb again?
Certainly. And this time I'm really gonna do you.
Come on, then, let's have you, then.
There's a bus coming.
Oh, shut up.
Yes, there is. There's a bus coming. Lorries don't have lights upstairs, do they?
He's right. It is the bus.
Hooray, it's the bus. It's the bus.
So that was the 1964 batch was obviously a great selection that went into the collectibles. Has anything more come your way since the collectibles in terms of original length Hancocks or indeed anything else?
No, not really. I don't have a vast amount now to do with reissues of Hancock, or indeed of anything. I mean, as a spectator, I've seen the Marriage Bureau and Trip to Swansea come up.
Yeah.
I'm pleased they exist, but they do tend rather to reinforce my opinion that Transcription chose pretty well the 23 that they put out from the first 3 series. I think the value of the Marriage Bureau is sort of retroactive. That yes, you've got Peter Sellers in it, but as a show, I don't think it's one of the better ones.
Oh, I'm sorry, Granny. Right out of stock.
What about them? They're men, ain't they?
Well, a memory's good anyway.
I'll have the fat one. I'm not particular.
Madam, please get your umbrella from round my neck. Madam, control yourself. Control yourself. Your eye-button boots are showing. Please, madam.
Granny, let go of him. I told you before, you mustn't be too eager. Frightens them off.
I haven't got time for the waiting game. Come on, fatty, let's live.
Get off! Stand! You go on, get out of it!
I want a man.
And you can't expect A Trip to Swansea to be that good because it was written under duress, which is fair enough. They had a slot to fill.
Yeah.
I'm coming across a right old curmudgeon today. Never mind.
Well, I think the Marriage Bureau is a great episode. So,
well, this is the point. You see, we can all have our opinions.
Yes.
Yeah.
It just didn't strike me as terribly good. One of the things that it would have been nice to have is that I think it turns up on one of the collectibles is this little snatch of Hancock doing a stand-up in Workers' Playtime or something. It turned up on the end of a disc somewhere. It's only about 90 seconds, if I remember right.
That's right. That's
But
right.
you could just hear it starting to get the audience going. Now, it would have been lovely to hear the end of that. The Hancock doing stand-up just at the point where the half hours were starting. Now, that really would have been interesting because he's on good form that day.
Yeah. Only that first disc survived, I believe, and the second one was no longer be found.
Even that, I think, was just on the end of a, I think it was on the end of a reverse side of something.
One of these magazine programs, or it's just on the tail end of a tape or something.
So it might even have been a reject acetate that somebody, a recording channel, they just dropped the pickup on it, and they just managed to get that drop the cutter on it, and they may just have managed to get that bit. But that is quite tantalising.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As I gaze at you tonight through this wire netting, you'll be glad to see that I'd come prepared for the comedy. As I sit here on my unicycle, wearing me long boots, with me electric nose flashing, and clutching in the left hand 5 minutes of hotel patter. I should like to thank the orchestra for that stab they had at the music. Incidentally, it may be of interest to you to know that Willem Towski, the conductor, apart from conducting the orchestra for the past 5 years, has appeared many times in this program as a single act with a wig and a saxophone under the assumed name of Ivy Benson. Sometimes I feel I can't go on, I don't know what it is. They just don't appreciate the higher art.
Have you got any more questions then?
We've got a couple more, haven't we?
Well, go on then.
From Deborah,
I've dug myself in pretty deep now.
From Deborah, what's the worst state of an original physical recording you've worked on that you've managed to recover?
Oh, it depends what you mean by recover. Eddie Arnold. This guy did stand up in the 1950s. He died prematurely of a brain tumor, and his daughter came up with some acetates of his performances and a reel-to-reel tape, which also had some of his material on. The acetates were shot beyond belief. It was an awful lot of work to get anything out of them, but I managed some of it. But there was this tape was delivered to me basically in a cardboard box. It was a 7-inch reel. It was acetate. It must have been in something like 100 pieces.
Oh, bloody.
Some of them only a few inches long.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was basically a case of just piecing them together as best I could, because there was no clue as to what order they were in.
Oh,
most of them. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but you see, when acetate tape breaks, it snaps. So you get a, you can sometimes match the pattern of the break, or sometimes you can do it by. I mean, at one point I resorted to joining a few of them together at random and just playing them through and saying, piece 5 belongs to piece 7, which belongs to piece 19, and that sort of thing. And I managed to get quite a lot of his material back that way. So that was pretty bad. There's some stuff sometimes where an acetate where it's been struck through or had Chinograph on it because the material's not wanted, and then you sort of have several clicks per revolution. I was doing a thing for Bing Crosby. There was a guy did a huge series of Bing Crosby's recordings, and he came up with a test pressing. But this was a test pressing which was actually full size. It was actually taken, if you will, off the full wax, which meant that it had a few seconds on the very outside, which had been cut by the cutting engineer just to check that all was well with the recording head. And what then happened was that the matrix number was written across that piece of groove with a scriber. So you've got this great sort of battery machine gun of clicks. I remember it quite well. It was the folks who live on the hill, right? And that has quite an interesting middle eight. Our veranda will command a view of Gardens Green or something. Anyway, it's a slightly sort of polytonal thing, and Bing was having a bit of trouble with it. And what made this interesting was that this wasn't just studio chatter. This was a little bit of Bing trying that middle eight over. And the guy doing this thing said, "Oh, look, we want to retrieve that material if we can." So it wasn't too bad, apart from this bit where, about a tenth of the revolution, there was this machine gun effect.
Yeah.
So I had to go through, picking through. That must have been 80, 90 clicks to come out a tiny length of time. But that was pretty challenging too.
Quite a bit, yeah. I mean, I presume everything, or Deborah's asked, is everything digitally transferred now, or do you ever make physical copies as well as the digital?
Not in sound, no. In film restoration, there's quite a strong trend towards having, even if the thing's gone through computer restoration, to actually making a physical print of it.
Yeah.
The belt and braces, I suppose. The equivalent thing in digits is just to make sure that the digital files are on a format that everybody will be able to read. So the Archives of the World have gone to 2496 wave format, or broadcast wave, which is same meat, different gravy, and to make sure that your files exist in several places.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
The importance of that cannot be overemphasized. He said, sitting on a large pile of stuff that he hasn't backed up properly.
But there's only so many hours in the day, though, isn't there? To back these things up.
Absolutely. And to be truthful, I mean, I there are things that I want to do for my own pleasure before Anno Domini catches up with me.
Of course.
I have a vast library of classical recordings, 60s, 70s, 80s, off Radio 3, which I inherited, basically. And I want A, to play those, and B, to see them preserved. You're quite right. There are only so many hours in the day.
Yep.
And,
so I think we've just got one more question, which
right.
is, what would you most like to find that is lost? Radio series or music or whatever it may be? And that's another question from Deborah Catty.
The answer everybody comes up with is George Orwell. He broadcast extensively for the BBC External Services during the war, Nothing of his output was recorded. So culturally, that would probably be the most significant.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, there's we're assuming here that this is stuff where a recording was known to have been made in the first place.
Yeah.
Rather than in the realms of fantasy. Like if I had a TARDIS and a Nagra, what would I record? You know, I mean that's open season.
What about a favourite Hancock that as yet undiscovered?
I don't know really. As I said before, I mean, from what I've heard of the first 3 series and the stuff that's come back, I mean, the stuff that has come back, it would be nice to have it in processable quality.
Mm.
I think there are a few things more frustrating than having to listen through I mean, all right, retrieving recordings from that state I've made a career out of, so I should worry. But it is frustrating to have something where you can't get any further. And, you know, you think there may be quite a performance hiding there, but you just can't get at it.
Yes.
That's vastly frustrating. So, yeah, in some ways, I could wish that the master tapes of Hancock's half hour from show 1 existed, wouldn't we all? But then we wouldn't be having this conversation. So you know, it's the world as it is, rather than as we'd like it to be. It would be nice for some of the Goon stuff to be in better sound. And texturally, the Goons from the beginning of the 5th series right to the end are effectively complete. Every word is there. It's just that the quality sometimes is not as good as it might be.
With your love of the Goons, would you like to, if it was found, the Hancock episodes with Harry Seacombe in? And we mentioned the Visit to Swansea earlier, which come up, but most people say they'd quite like to hear the racehorse or something.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, there's some material where the journey is better than the destination.
Yeah, it's got such a mythical status that when you come to it, you'd be like, "Oh,
well, that's the thing." And then, you know,
my mind had built it up.
Well, yes. And you know, this Seacombe Hancock comes up, and it's not really. Well, yes, you know, it's the 4th of the series, isn't it? And you know, I don't think I'm being unduly biased and say, well, yeah, but that was written to order, and it was, wasn't it? Because they didn't know that Hancock was coming back after the 3rd program,
and they had to bridge the gap, didn't they? With well, how are we going to write ourselves out of this one? Well, we're going to have an episode where he goes to, you know, say thank you to Harry, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Now, you see, what is curious about that is it rather conflicts with something that Dennis Main Wilson told me, because we got talking about the Seacombe Hancocks, as you do, because after all, he was the producer at the time. And there's something in Wilmot's book quoting Main Wilson as saying that he thought, well, you know, that by the 3rd program that Seacombe was actually getting into the idiom and could perhaps have gone in a slightly different direction as an actor, or at least had more range in doing radio. And he either got a phone call from him or actually met him in person, and I can't remember which it was. But either way, Jimmy Grafton just said to him, "You get your hands off my artist." Grafton didn't want him going in that direction at all. But when you hear A Trip to Swansea, to my mind, it's full voltage Manic Seacombe.
Harry, we've been looking everywhere for you.
Good evening, Harold.
Hello, Tony. Nice to see you again. What are you doing down here in Welsh Wales?
He came down to thank you, Harry.
Thank me? What for?
I prepared a little speech. I'd just like to say on behalf of myself and the assembled cast how much. And this coal dust got up your nose. How much I appreciate you stepping into my radio show and taking over from me and making such a big success.
Oh, Tony, it was nothing.
Nothing, he said. It flipping now ruined me.
It comes across that way.
Based on A Trip to Swansea, I can't see what Main Wilson saw. But then, I haven't heard any of the 3 previous episodes. Nobody has for 70 years. So we don't know. So that is a mystery. It would be nice to clear up. But what is it that Maine Wilson saw in that?
Yeah, and how did Seacombe play the part? Was he in full, as you say, goons mode, which it sort of Visit to Swansea suggests, or was he trying to do something more along Hancock's lines?
There could have been good reasons for going full voltage Seacombe in Trip to Swansea, because he would have to point up the contrast between himself and Hancock again, because Hancock was there. When he was being Hancock, he would have had to modify his style, presumably, to make that work. It's an intriguing question, and if only for that reason, the three Seacombe Hancocks would be interesting to hear. But the rosy dreams of there being something remarkable, to my mind, have faded to a rather dull yellow by now. You know, if they turn up, fine, we shall smile, we shall listen to them. But I'm not sure there's much of the way of gold to be found in those first three series.
Yeah, there are moments in episodes, you know.
Unless it's something that's excluded on grounds of topicality. See, the Blackboard Jungle stands up pretty well. Yeah. And I think the reason Transcription didn't take that was topicality, because they probably thought, in common with everybody else, that rock and roll would come and go and sanity would prevail. It didn't. They weren't to know that when they were selecting it.
Yeah.
But that is a show of some quality to my mind.
As I walked across the school playground, a brick hit me on the back of the head. This, then, was the school at which I would shortly be taking up my duties as English master. My first appointment since graduating from university. I was very excited and eager to start work. Yet as I dodged round the two seniors, jiving by the steps, I somehow sensed there was something different about this school.
Because it was, I suppose, partly because it was rock and roll, partly because it was just a skit on a current film.
Yeah, it's one of those parody things. I think Around the World in 80 Days and Anna and the King of Siam, again, weren't taken by transcription services, and the copies that exist are from domestic recordings for the most part, aren't they?
Anna and the King of Siam certainly is domestic recording. That was repeated in 1964. Round the World in 80 Days, if memory serves, I think it made it into archives. I may be wrong on that.
But I suppose they've got that topical element because they're based on a film, and if people aren't familiar with the film, well, the episode doesn't quite work as well. More so with the Blackboard Jungle than the other two, I suppose, because it's modern film rather than a classic.
Yes, yeah. As I say, I think that Blackboard Jungle was rejected on grounds of topicality rather than poor quality. Whereas, Sid James's dad, I'm not particularly fond of. I think really terribly good.
Seriously, now, what about your dad? It's his birthday tomorrow. He's 83 and he's coming down to London to spend the holiday with me. Well, very nice too. What's wrong with that? Well, I can't let him stay with me. Why not? Well, I'm a bit ashamed of it, really, but... Now, come on. Well, you see, he kept reading in the papers that I was appearing in court. There was only one thing I could do. What? I told him I was a judge.
I think it has some fun moments, but it's surprising that a better recording of that hasn't turned up, because, of course, it's the only one of the four series that exists in particularly subpar quality.
Well, isn't Grandad's SOS?
That's TV soundtrack, though, that one.
That's a TV one.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, there is this thing in general that more people, it seemed, were taking the Goons earlier. Possibly because of the crossover between jazz and Goon humour. John R.T. Davis was taking Goons down on acetate 55, 56 and left Hancock alone.
I suppose the Goons as well, because it was more adventurous sound effects, ridiculously silly voices, things like that. It appealed to perhaps younger listeners who would have been more interested in the tech of taping things and collecting
well,
things
quite possibly. And of course, the jazz contingent would have been kept happy by the music spots. They were by no means negligible.
Yeah,
I mean, there's some things that are sort of only available in mono. You wish were available in stereo, but that's trivial, really. That's only an improvement in quality. It's not the existence or not of a recording.
Indeed.
I was going to say, I always find it interesting there's some episodes that a particular favourite of mine is Hancock in the Police. Just, I don't know, I like the crossover of comedy and crime. But when some of the box sets come out, and then there's these extra lines, like I think particularly when he's talking to Kenneth as the police sergeant. How tall are you? 6'2".
How tall are you?
With or without the helmet?
Without.
With or without the boots?
Without.
6'2".
You're a short man for 6'2", aren't you?
Well, you know how it is. Round shoulders, bow legs and flat feet. It takes yards off you.
Very short man for 6'2", aren't you? Which had been cut from repeats in the 70s, 80s, 90s, as far as I'm aware. Hearing that for the first time, one of the box sets is lovely, you know.
Oh, well, yeah. I think that. I mean, this whole thing of like sort of that was what it was. Sorry, tangent again. The Trial of Father Christmas.
Yeah.
Now there has been a persistent rumor that the Trial of Father Christmas exists, and at one point I ran it to earth, more or less, and all the guy could say was, "Oh yes, my mate had it, and his dad had taped it off air, and I used to go around there and we'd listen to it. But I don't know where the tape's gone. I've lost touch with the bloke. I've lost touch with the tape and everything."
Yeah.
That did actually exist as a domestic recording some time back. Anyway, sorry, that was the isolated thought. But yes, the thing of these little asides that just get snipped out, I do think to some degree now it's overdone. I think the blanket disclaimer that this is comedy of a certain age and embodies the attitudes and outlook of the time it was made should, in most cases, be sufficient. If you go back censoring and rooting out the bits you don't like from history, where do you stop? I think, in a sense, that's overdone. Again, you see, it's a little bit of the world as it is and not the world as we'd like it to be. Not everybody is gentle, kind, considerate, sensitive to a fault, to everybody's feelings, and sometimes that becomes the raw material of comedy. I mean, look at the way the Hancock character rode roughshod over people sometimes.
Yeah, and well, it's like there'd be obviously very often the fat jokes about Hattie, but there'd also be the fat jokes about himself, wouldn't there, kind of thing.
Well, yes,
as a character, he's a bit of a nasty piece of work in some ways.
Well, absolutely, and the personal comments about Bill Kerr's habits and all that sort of thing. And I mean, you can start reading too much into this, and I don't particularly want to sound like John Cleese, but a lot of comedy is about puncturing people's pretensions. And if you're doing that, up to a point, you are critical of them. I suppose the guiding principle could or should be that a characteristic somebody cannot help should not necessarily be grounds for comedy.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, Hattie, I don't think particularly liked the preponderance of jokes about her size because she felt it was a cheap laugh. And after a while, personally, I think she would find it wearing a bit thin. I can understand that.
Yeah.
And let's face it, there were plenty of other characteristics about Griselda Pugh which you could take a tilt at. I mean, heaven knows she was bombastic, she was ignorant, she was a bully. But she wasn't written as a particularly sympathetic character. She was written as somebody to go toe to toe with Hancock.
And that's arguably why she worked so well compared to sort of Andre and Moira, who didn't have as much of a character. She was written as one of the boys, as it were, in some respects.
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, heaven knows she was living in with Hancock, but nobody sort of imputed anything to that. It was just unthinkable. Yeah?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Sid was always undermining Hancock, wasn't he? And Bill was the guy that Hancock was always sitting on one way or another. So you had, in some ways, this character who would go toe to toe with him, and Griselda did. So she served that purpose and did it very well. That said, I think that the Griselda of that she's almost like a doting parent in Britain Father Christmas.
What a fool I've been.
Oh, now, don't take it so hard. You had to find out sooner or later. I know how you feel. We've all gone through it. It's a bitter blow at first, I know, but you'll get over it. Look upon it as a milestone in your development. You've finally become a man. You've bridged the gap between fantasy and reality.
Yes, definitely, definitely.
And I hit him and get it over with.
And who lay in their nice warm beds every year a kip? A kip! While I was doing all this, and now have the effrontery to criticise me, you!
Hit him and get it over with.
Oh, no, sorry, all right, I'm quoting bits of that show, but that one just sticks in my mind. It just...
Well, as you say, Ted, it's a brilliant performance from Hattie, isn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah. It's very human.
I think that's pretty much covers all we wanted to chat over with you. So it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us. Was there anything else you wanted to add in particular in terms of Hancock or thoughts you had?
Well, I mean, I'm pleased to have done it. I think I've done people a service, so from that point of view, I'm pleased about it. And the guy still makes me laugh.
We're all certainly pleased you've done it. It's great to have your work available. Yeah.
Well, I mean, somebody had to do it, and I'm rather pleased it turned out to be me. But there we go.
Brilliant. Ted, thank you so much for joining us. It's been, as John said, an absolute pleasure. And I know Tim said how much we appreciate what you've done for Hancock's Half Hour and all the box sets and the collectibles. And I think, say, from all of our members and all fans worldwide, to say thank you for all you've done, because it's having those box sets and the collectibles, I think, just completes the Hancock canon as much as we can. So thank you for all you've done.
Thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome, gentlemen. You're welcome.
Tom, actually, we thank you. My bank balance less so after I bought all the bits and pieces.
Yes, if only I was on points.
Percentage on that, marvellous.
Brilliant.
So that's about it for this week. If you want to take it away, Tim.
Why not join us in the Tony Hancock Appreciation Society today? You can find us at tonyhancock.org.uk for all the information on how to join.
For just £13 a year, you'll have access to the members area of our website and receive 4 magazines a year by email, packed with information on Tony, his shows and archive material.
Members also get a digital-only bonus pages supplement every quarter.
Or you can have full-colour printed copies of the missing page posted to your door for £16 in the UK or £26 worldwide.
And we're a friendly and welcoming bunch, so please do join. We have reunion events with archive displays, guest speakers and special screenings.
Please get in touch. We love questions, conundrums and feedback. To do so is very easy. Send your emails to podcast@tonyhancock.org.uk.
Keep an eye on our Twitter or X accounts for latest news on the podcast and all things Tony Hancock. Our Twitter accounts are EastCheamLad and Tony Hancock Appreciation Society. We're also on Blue Sky at tonyhancock.bsky.social.
We'll be back to chat about more Hancock episodes in a new series of the podcast in the spring, when we'll be starting with Sid's Mystery Tours, as suggested by Mark McGuigan.
For now, that's very nearly an armful, so I'll say ta-ta.
It's sayonara from me.
And this is GLK London, closing down for a quick cough and a drag.
What, bet your ears like a couple of globe artichokes under those headphones, or braised lamb cutlets, depending on what I'm quoting.
Yeah, depending on the version.
Indeed.
Yeah.
This has been an official podcast of the Tony Hancock Appreciation Society. Unfortunately, it was not written by Alan Simpson and Ray Gordon, whoever they are. The announcer was me, Robin Sebastian, currently appearing in the saloon bar of the Hendon Racket.
I know I have a tendency to go off on tangents, but if you're ruthless with the blade and get it down to the liveliest bones, I shan't object.
No problem.
Yeah, we'll send you the TS version, shall we?
Yeah, that'll be about 2 minutes long.
Well, we'll put all the bits we've cut out at the end, don't forget.
Yes, best to put most of those in backwards, and then people won't realise what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.